Hello, this is an assessment of a Chappell grand piano, 7 foot long, made in 1914. And the client's asked us to assess it for work that would need to be done or to improve the piano. First of all, the casework. Well, it's in reasonable condition, though just have a quick look round. It could be French polished, obviously, which would be wonderful. It's rosewood, and that side's obviously quite faded. And generally faded, you can see the top there, what the original colour probably was, and that's been covered up. So looking all around the outside of the piano, generally roughly the same fading, and you can see on the top lid that's faded, but as we've often seen before, as soon as we lift this, you can see that that's been kept down and the fade line there. So always saying that if you have a grand piano, do keep it shut some of the time, open some of the time, then it will fade evenly, because this needs to fade obviously as well. So if you keep it shut all the time, that will be much darker. So you can see the problem there. Obviously this can be completely repolished, and it's beautiful rosewood, and so worth doing, I think. And looking around the side here, you can see the legs are a different colour. They never are rosewood, the legs. They matched in as well as they possibly can. They tend to be darker, and the beautiful music stand here. The key tops have been replaced. If you look here, you can see that they're pretty good replacements. They're not ivory, but pretty even, and a beautifully constructed piano generally. There's many aspects to this. It's very high standard. There's a lot of regulations to do, a lot of work to do, as we'll see in a minute. We saw a number written here, which we thought was the serial number, and it's not far off. We did find the serial number underneath the fall, various on the cheeks as well, but then we found it here. So that really does confirm the correct serial number, 56567. Now the soundboard and frame, they're very dirty, but no real damage on them. But the main problem we've got here is the tuning pins are very flat and, very loose indeed. So for instance, you very often find it's one row, so it's the top one, the right hand one, mainly the top row here, and that is just turns so easily with the tuning lever, so it really doesn't stay in tune. It's far too easy to turn, so therefore they're not staying in tune. Now you could set the pins if you had on a budget. You could set them with a pin setter, and they'll tighten up a bit, but there's already quite far in. That one particular one is anyway, and many others are, so there's no real option here other than to replace the tuning pins, but they're very large in the bottom here particularly, and really they've been replaced already. So a new rest plank, as we mentioned before, that's the wood underneath here, replaced with a new modern rest plank as it's put in new pianos. You can see one string here that's replaced, so if we listen to the tone of that, that's a beautiful sound. That's the original, or rather not the original, the one after it was restrung. So it's a beautiful sound. And then you hear that one has a different tone because it's shorter. So you really need to get the strings the same length. I think the diameter is roughly the same, but it's just shorter, so it's producing a different tone. And of course it's the last one in of the single basses, so it's got to try and match in with this one. Chappell's beautifully made piano. This doesn't sound good at the moment, but because they'll be able to tune this. But the break point is good, and that's always a sign of a good manufacturer. And the underlying sound tone is very good. Basically, the crown is on the bridge, then the sound would be distributed across the whole soundboard. The crown on the bridge is where there's a down bearing pushing onto the soundboard to distribute the sound, but it varies from maker to maker a bit, and there's plenty to say about that. But just to say, on this piano, if you recap the bridge, raise it a little bit, then it increases the down bearing, then that's the usual way that that's done. And that may improve the tone in the centre if it's defective, but in this case, I don't think it needs doing. Being a high quality piano, it does have these bolts. You can adjust the down bearing by basically reducing the height of that, so that the frame goes down slightly, and the same on Steinways and other makes of piano as well. So that's another way of adjusting the down bearing if necessary. Now the hammers are resting on the rail here, and really they're about 53, 54 millimeters from the string. It should be normally about 47. So that's affecting the whole of the touch. And once that is the most important job to do. By the way, if you're not able to do any other work on a grand, then regulating these capstans is going to make a huge difference to the feel of the piano. But the musician will be really pleased about that. There's the other regulation we've mentioned many times before to do here. So I won't go through that again today, but there's also a looseness of the hinges here. So that hinge is loose. In other words, it's been played a lot, and gradually this hinge wears, and that affects the touch, and it's very loose. And as we'll see in a minute, there's a huge variety of touch on the whole piano. So hammers, shanks and rollers, I think we're going to have to replace them all, because I did mention that it's possible to reface these, but as we've got to replace the shanks and the rollers, or you could just repin here, you could just change the rollers, but in the long run it's easier to change the whole thing. So hammers, shanks and rollers are recommended work, and we would always do that if it was a piano that we were fully restoring. So hammers will go up a bit. The spring adjustment is like a Bechstein one here, was very convenient to do. So it's a beautiful piano to work on. It's a Schwander action, which is one of the most common actions. Schwander Renner actions, you see that written on a lot of English pianos have got Schwander actions in. If you're in the trade and want to fill us in a bit more information on that, I'd be really grateful as well, because we're always happy to learn as much as we possibly can. The assessments, I'm so grateful when people do comment, because it's such a wonderful opportunity to learn. These hammers are extremely soft, so while they're not incredibly worn, they are very soft, and it'll be very hard to get a good tone without replacing them. So it's a fine instrument with a lot of work. First of all, replacing the rest plank, and we reconditioned the soundboard, refinished the frame, replaced the bearing cloth, and repin and restring. So that's standard work that's done, and it'll turn out to a beautiful piano. The hammers, we need to reface or replace those, as we've just shown. So it needs full regulation, reducing the hammer blows to first, I've mentioned before, the most important thing to do, and then all the regulation basically needs doing. I won't go through all that now, but the touch is incredibly varied. I've rarely seen this touch as varied as this. 56 down weight will be all right for the bass, and then suddenly it goes to 44 and 40, but the odd thing is it goes up to 49 here, and then 57 at the top. They're extremely varied, and that's a lot to do with the wear. It's been used a lot really, and maybe not been regulated very accurately initially. So I'm just going to play the piano to give you some idea, although it's very flat. So it's a fine instrument, as you can hear, very out of tune. So I'm just going to make a few more comments. It's a beautifully designed piano. Chappells of this period are one of the best makes of grand piano, and every bit as good as a German grand piano. So I want to encourage you, if you've got a good quality long Chappell grand piano, then it's a fine instrument. The shorter one, which is called a new style, looks very much like this. We've restored those and we've sold them as well. So thank you very much for listening, and it's obvious what needs doing to the piano, but you can hear the underlying tone. It's got the tone, it's spreading across the soundboard, and that's the main thing we're looking for when we're restoring a piano. So it's really worth doing. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you've got a piano that you'd like restored, please do write to info@robertspianos.com.